This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather Ho there. It's Jeff Cutterdome, welcoming you to another Sports Catastrophe birthday boy. And the birthday boy for today, the 27th of December, is a former number one draft pick in the NFL. He was supposed to be the franchise QB for the Cincinnati Bengals. Unfortunately, injuries would define his career, unfortunately. He then played for Arizona. After the Bengals decided to get rid of him, well, he was traded to Oakland first by mistake. I remember him as a Cardinal, but I forgot he was a Raider. So anyway, yeah, injuries would hurt him. He's 43 years old today. He is Carson Palmer. So Carson Palmer, born in Fresno, played pretty well in high school, and then he signed with USC. He was also courted by Notre Dame, Colorado, Miami, San Diego State, and Northern Illinois. Northern Arizona. But it doesn't matter. He went to USC. He was the backup for his stuff. But he got a start against Washington, becoming the first true freshman quarterback since Rob Johnson did do so for USC. Palmer actually beat number 9 Notre Dame in his freshman year. He went to the Sun Bowl against Texas Christian and got sacked 6 times. Anyway, he was named the starter for the 99 USC squad as a sophomore. And unfortunately, he broke his collarbone against Oregon in his 3rd game. He played 3 games, but the NCAA allowed him to use his red shirt, which meant that he didn't have to lose a year of eligibility. Well, that collarbone just went crunch. Palmer came back for the 2000 season, and unfortunately, USC was under 500. They lost 5. Well, they lost with a 5-7 mark, so obviously they were not bowl eligible. In his junior season, Pete Carroll became the USC head coach when Seattle got rid of him because of a failed playoff run. So Pete Carroll went to USC and had a new revamped offense. I mean, USC did win only 6 times, but still, I mean, that started the beginning of a dynasty. In his senior season, he looked pretty good. He came back to school for his senior year and played well. USC went to the Orange Bowl against Iowa and was named game MVP, giving him a giant win. And won the 2002 Heisman over Brad Banks of Iowa and Larry Johnson of Penn State. Palmer became the first USC quarterback to win the award. All the others have been running backs, but yeah, a quarterback. Well, his senior year with 3,942 yards passing, 33 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. That's good. Anyway, the Bengals wasted no time. They needed a quarterback. They were the laughingstock of the 90s. They needed one. So Carson Palmer was obviously given the first overall pick. Despite being the number 1 pick, he didn't play at all in his rookie season. John Kidna took every snap of the 2003 season, which was unusual. But it didn't matter. Palmer had to learn the position, and then he was given the starting quarterback season for 2004. Started 13 games, and the Bengals were 8-8. That's not bad. So his debut against the Jets, they lost 31-24, but that's okay. Unfortunately, he was sprained his knee in week 14 and missed the rest of the season. But still, I mean, the Bengals being at 500, that's good. However, in 2005, the Bengals did so much better. They ended up winning the AFC North with 11 wins, which is amazing. Like, the Bengals had their first winning season since 1990, which was huge and all that. He was the guy who knew what to do with himself. They would take on the Steelers in the first round of the AFC playoffs in the wild card game because the Bengals did not have enough wins to be top 2 and get a bye. Remember, this was 2006. This was 16-game season and 6 teams in each conference's playoffs. On the first pass play, Carson Palmer threw a great 66-yard pass to Chris Henry. Great job. The only problem was, after Palmer released the pass, Kebo Von Olhoffen, the defensive tackle, dove into Palmer's left knee. It was a severe injury, so Palmer would have tears of his ACL and MCL, as well as cartilage and meniscus damage, and a displaced kneecap. Strange as it sounded, Chris Henry also was hurt on that play. The Steelers would end up winning 31-17. And somehow the Steelers won the Super Bowl over the Seahawks. Seahawks fans are bitching because, there were several calls against the Seahawks that day. And Bengals fans will bitch because, Chemo did that low hit. However, the rules committee for the NFL took it seriously with the new rule regarding low hits on quarterbacks. The Chemo von Offhofen rule requires that defenders take every opportunity to avoid hitting a quarterback at or below the knees when a quarterback's in a defensive position, unless they're blocked into him. Palmer would go through rehab and actually, somehow, in some way, despite the ACL and MCL tear, and probably career ending, Palmer vowed to be back in Cincy starting lineup on day one. He did. And his performance drew raves and all that. It was shocking, all that. The mental toughness of Palmer. Palmer only missed one snap of the 2006 Bengals season. He got to the Pro Bowl, but the team lost out 8-8. But he felt comfortable with his knee. So anyway, the 2007 season saw him set the record for most yards by a Bengals quarterback with 4,131. 2008, he had a bad elbow and needed Tommy John surgery to repair. Well, he could have had Tommy John surgery to repair the damage, but he wanted to rest the elbow to allow it to heal. So he didn't really play that well. Didn't play that much in the 2008 season. The 2009 season, he helped the Bengals win the division and a home game against New York Jets, but unfortunately they lost 24-14. It wasn't because of Palmer's play. He did okay. It's just the fact that Shane Graham missed some easy field goals. The Bengals needed some wide receivers for Palmer, so they did. They took Jerome Gresham, Jordan Shipley, and Desmond Briscoe. And Palmer said that Ocho Cinco should be there with the team. For the team. Unfortunately, the Bengals would only win 4 games, and Palmer requested to be traded. Palmer said that I will never set foot in Paul Brown Stadium, aka that's Cincy's home park. Again, I have $80 million in the bank. Logically, the team and Palmer were not really getting on the same page. Carson Palmer planned to retire, and because of that, the Bengals took Andy Dalton in the second round of the draft. So, anyway. So Carson signed a contract, gave his word, and he's retired. So anyway, the Bengals were 6-2 though, with Andy Dalton behind center, so they weren't too concerned. But because Oakland lost their starting quarterback, the Bengals were like, "Fine, we'll give you Carson Palmer." So they did. They decided to trade the disgruntled quarterback. And Hugh Jackson was actually the quarterback's coach for USC when Palmer was there, so it looked good. So, in exchange for Palmer, the Bengals received Oakland's first-round pick in the 2012 draft and a second-round pick in the 2013 draft, which would actually be a first-round pick if the Raiders got to the AFC title game. But it wasn't. But Cincy would use those picks to good advantage. They got Drake Kirkpatrick, a cornerback from Bama, with the 2012 pick, and the 2013 pick, they got Gio Bernard from North Carolina. Decent running back. They said it was a lot of one-sided trades. All that. It actually worked out for Dalton because Andy Dalton helped the Bengals make the playoffs. And as usual, they lost their first game of the playoffs. But Palmer was in a 4-year deal with the Raiders. Palmer switched his number to 3 because Shane Leckler was wearing number 9. So anyway, under Palmer, the Raiders went 4-5. They ended up losing a tiebreaker to the Broncos for the playoffs, which actually sucks even worse for the Raiders because the Broncos went. Oh no, sorry, my mistake. I was going to say the Broncos went on to face the Steelers as the 6th seed and beat them, but no, that's incorrect. That's the other way around because Denver hosted that game. Anyway, Carson Palmer played for Oakland, but the worst part about it was that the Raiders were terrible. They were 4-11 with him, so logically the Raiders really sucked. Carson Palmer had lost his touch, if you will. So Oakland decided to cut their losses and trade him to Arizona for a 6th-round pick. That's how bad it was for Palmer now. He signed a 2-year, $16 million contract. But the joke was on the Raiders because Palmer got the Cardinals to win 10 games. But somehow they didn't make the playoffs. That's unusual. But anyway, it worked. Well, 2014, the Cardinals won 11 games, went to the playoffs as a wild card, but lost to Carolina because Palmer tore his ACL against the Rams November 2014, ending his season. It was weird that Drew Stanton helped the Cardinals make the playoffs, and then they had to go with Ryan Lindley. The Cardinals did lose that game in the playoffs because they lost their top 2 quarterbacks, their top 2 running backs, and a couple of key linebackers. Palmer actually had a fantastic season in 2015, winning 13 games and getting the Cardinals a bye in the playoffs, which was pretty good. In the divisional round, the Cardinals beat the Packers. Of course, that game was crazy because Aaron Rodgers threw a Hail Mary to tie the game in regulation. And then in overtime, Palmer threw a key pass to Larry Fitzgerald that helped them out. But Arizona's excitement would be crushed by Carolina, who were that damn dominant. I mean, Carolina was 15-1, but they won 49-15 in the NFC title game. Oof. Palmer got a vote for the MVP, but Cam Newton got 48 out of 50. The other vote went to Tom Brady, if you must know. Unfortunately for Carolina, Denver would beat them in the playoffs. Anyway, he signed a 1-year contract extension, threw for 4,000 yards, but the Cardinals were 1 game below 500. Came back in 2017. He had a broken left arm and was out pretty much for the last half of the 2017 season. Palmer would then announce his retirement January 2018, becoming 12th at the time of his retirement in passing yards and touchdowns. He would actually be named to the Arizona Cardinals Ring of Honor, but his number wouldn't be retired. So anyway, in his career, he played 182 games, won 92 of them. His passing, 46,247 yards, 294 touchdowns, 187 interceptions. Just that damn close to 300. Why did I say 600? Sorry. In the playoffs, he only won 1 playoff game out of 4. That wasn't really the best thing for him. Anyway, he was named Pro Bowl MVP in 2006. He was the passing touchdowns leader in 2005 in the NFL and the NFC co-leader in 2015. Comeback Player of the Year by Sporting News in 2015. And he made it to the College Football Hall of Fame last year. Okay. He still has some Bengals records. And a lot of Cardinal records because, the Cardinals with their passing and all that. Anyway, Palmer got married to a former USC soccer player and they have 4 children. So anyway, Carson Palmer is an organ donor because, the patella from his injury, MCL injury, came from a woman who died in a car crash. So, yeah, organ donation sometimes works out. But I don't think my organs would be good for anybody. I don't know. Anyway, I'm Jeff. I'm going to do.